So, the full name of this community is Divine Connection Center for Spiritual Awareness. And that's our goal, is to help open awareness to the spiritual truth that is us. Every one of our Sunday talks, and I forgot the numbers now, but 8 years, 52, well, some years we didn't do 52 services, but most of the time we did. Whatever that math works out to be, I'm not a mathematician, so I'm not going to try to figure it out. We have talked about what it means to live spiritually, what it means to recognize our spiritual truth. And almost as many of those talks, we've had newsletters that all speak to the same thing. When you look at it that way, it kind of seems a little boring. Never change topics. But we do talk at it different ways, because the more we hear it, the more we understand the truth that is us. For most of us, this human experience gets way more attention than our truth, our spiritual experience. It's common. I mean, we're in this physical form. All of the senses of this body relate to the outside world in a physical manner. If you can't touch it, see it, feel it, hear it, it's kind of difficult to keep in the forefront of your attention, your focus. So what that means is we look at this world, this life experience, we look at the problems, the situations, the good things and the bad things, from the physical form, and try to deal with it that way. If we deal with it good enough, the spiritual part will be there. And we kind of have it backwards. We kind of have it skewed a little bit. No, we kind of have it skewed a whole lot. A whole lot. It's similar. As I was working on this, the thought came to me, it's like I'm going to take a trip to Columbus, Ohio. And I set my GPS for home and take off driving. We might find Columbus, Ohio, but the journey's probably going to be a little difficult, because it's going to be constantly trying to lead us back to where we started. That's what this human experience does to us. We know, sitting here on Sunday mornings, watching the video, whenever you're watching it, or sitting anywhere, we know that we're seeking a greater spiritual experience. But we keep getting directions from this human experience. What if we figured out how to live this life, knowing full well that every answer, every solution, every experience is perfect? What would your life be like then? If you knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that every decision that you make, every step you take is perfect, what would you do? How would you experience this life? I would bet that if you knew there was no way you could take a wrong step, you would probably take more steps than you're currently taking. I bet you could look at something that you have never done before and not see the risk, but see the beautiful results. That's what living from the spiritual experience is all about. It's not about looking out there for something. That's one of the things that we do in this human form. We just automatically look outside of us. Now, I'm a big fan of reading the books, of listening to the lectures, of doing the practices, the meditations and the prayers. I do that. That really helps me center. But all of those are kind of an outward projection unless we are doing them consciously. And I don't mean consciously from the human sense. I'm talking about with a spiritual consciousness. When we know that that journey is not out there, when we know that the spiritual truth that we seek is not something we have to go to, when we know that that spiritual truth is not something we have to develop, we start realizing that it's already fully developed within. And it's peeling back the layers of all the stuff that we don't need, that don't serve us. The story of the Buddhist monks years and years and years ago with the golden statue of Buddha is a perfect example of this. An army was coming to invade, and they were taking everything precious, just looting everything. So the monks in this monastery knew they couldn't get away, so they covered the gold statue with mud. These marauders came in and killed everyone. Years later, the monastery was discovered, and more monks moved in and began the monastery again. Once again, they were being invaded. This time they had enough time, and they rigged up a way to move the statue. Now keep in mind, the statue is covered in mud. But it was precious to them because it was something that was there. It was a way to honor the monks before them. And so they're moving it, and in the process of moving it, they see a crack. And then they see the shiny gold up under it. They get it to a safe place, they clean all the mud off, and they notice the beauty, the perfection of what's inside. That's what this is all about. We're not looking for Buddha. We're looking for God. We're looking for truth. We're looking for our truth. One of the things that stands in our way is, no, I'm not going to say one of the things, the thing that stands in our way is our thought process. And we talk about this a lot. But one of the things that I haven't really talked about much is the one three-letter word that stops us even if we believe we're on the right path. And that three-letter word is but. I have some examples of how this works. I believe my true nature is divine, but. We always put a but in there. We don't typically leave that alone. We have to add something to it. I believe my true nature is divine, but. I know perfect healing is mine, but. I know perfect healing is mine, but I better get over this first. No. Perfect healing. But can be hidden as well. It can be hidden through other words. All is well in my life when? It's like all is well in my life, but I've got to have this happen first. But can be hidden. It can be in the shape of a pause. We sometimes think that I love you, and there's that pause. That word but is powerful. It means ignore everything I said before now, because here comes the truth. I believe my true nature is divine, but ignore that, because that's what happens in our brain. The word but tells us ignore everything else, because this right here just disclaimed all of that. Here comes the truth. So be aware of that. Be aware of that in your thoughts. The word but is caused by fear. Everything negative, everything dark, it's a fear. This one is not like a fear of, a fear for your life. It's not like a fear of something physical coming into you. It's a fear of uncertainty. Because when you're certain, when you know beyond a shadow of a doubt your true spiritual nature, the word but's not needed. I believe my true nature is divine, but what you're just doing is you're giving yourself, okay, well, if things don't work out, I've given myself an out. I can go back and work on it later. I've given myself this way out. So just be aware of where your thoughts are going. In our efforts to live as spiritual beings, our thoughts throw us off more than anything else. The one thing that you can do to raise awareness of your spiritual truth and to open yourself to evolve that truth is conscious participation. We sometimes spend time in prayer and we're just going through the motions. Sometimes. Not everybody. Sometimes. I know that there are days that I say a prayer and it's just, okay, I'm saying these words, but I'm over here looking at what needs to be done next. I have not connected with spiritual truth. I have not connected with God. I'm just speaking some words. And I think that those words probably do hold some power, some purpose, but they're not connected. They're not conscious. It's the conscious participation that gets us into the spiritual evolution that we all seek. When we have an idea of what we should become, that's where our thoughts are saying, you're supposed to be this. And then we set out on a journey to become that. Your truth is within, and it's not something that you think it is. It's something that you become aware of. When we think that we're supposed to be this way in order to live our spiritual experience, we've set guidelines, we've set limits. Your truth is infinite. Your truth is infinite. We are perfect, individualized expressions of God. We are not becoming anything. We are opening to and revealing what is already within. It's not a journey to something that we're on. It is a journey within. I found a quote, and I failed to write down who this quote is from, so I apologize to whoever came up with this. The truth is that for us to be able to consciously evolve to a place where we are living a divinely embodied life, and to help others do the same, we must participate intentionally in our own evolution. See, it's real easy to think this evolution is just going to happen. You know, we look back over Darwin's theory of evolution and pretty much any other theory of evolution, and throughout the history of being, and it seems like evolution just happened. And maybe it did. This evolution does not just happen. This evolution requires conscious participation. We begin this journey with the realization that there is a perfect spiritual idea of you. As humans, the temptation is to look out there to define it. Oh, let's see, this person over here, they're pretty spiritual. I kind of like what I see over here. That's what I'm supposed to be. No. You are a perfect, individualized expression of God. The only way to identify what you are is to go within, to consciously participate in your spiritual evolution. You did not inherit this perfect spiritual idea. You didn't get it from your parents. You didn't get it from your ancestors. You didn't get it from society. You didn't get it from civilization. So looking out there is not going to find your answer. That's not going to give you your answer. You inherit it directly from the heart mind of God. This is not a process of discovery. You know, so much of the, and I was highly involved in it as a teacher, as a participant. So much of the self-help industry was trying to find yourself. That's not what we're doing here. Now, the disclaimer is that got me on this path. There was a huge benefit in trying to find myself. It got me to where I am today. It got me to where I can see these truths. So it's not a journey of discovery as much as it is a journey of revelation. If you think you reveal something dark or bad, you can't. If it seems dark, if it seems bad, your perception of what's happening is where the correction needs to be made. Because in truth, God doesn't create anything dark or bad. If it's dark or bad, it's not true. So if you see something dark or bad, just stop. Remind yourself, I can change my perception of this. I can know that this isn't truth, it's an illusion. I'm going to let it slide away. I'm going to bring in truth. I'm going to bring in good. I'm going to bring in light. So know that. Here's the beautiful thing about this truth that is you as a perfect spiritual expression. God has given its entirety to you. Every attribute of God is within. It is your makeup, your DNA. There is nothing missing. There is a perfect spiritual idea, and everything is given to you to consciously participate and open your evolving, your evolution. Now, how awesome is that? This perfect spiritual idea of you, this idea that is God's idea of you. This idea that is your truth, this idea that is your expression is the individual expression of God. It's not your past. It's not your circumstances. It's not anyone else's idea of you. It's God's idea of you. When I say that God, the entirety of God is given to you, I want you to understand, think of this as the ocean. The ocean, of course, is finite, but just think of the ocean as infinite. And you're a drop of water in that ocean. Even if that drop of water, something splashes and that drop of water comes up out of the ocean, every attribute of the ocean is in that drop. It's not the entire ocean, but every attribute of the ocean is in that drop. That's the way we are. We're not the entirety of God, but every attribute of God is us. The perfect idea of you includes the perfect experience of life. So we're not two separate things happening here. We don't have this spiritual truth and then our human experience. If we had that, there would be separation. There would be duality. Since God is omnipresent, since God is everywhere present, that's impossible. So it's not two separate things. We can realize, reveal, evolve our spiritual truth, and we can live this material experience from that truth. This has all been given. It is your truth. Your experience of life can reflect this truth. To live the life of truth requires this conscious participation. This means our thoughts are aligned with good. Our thoughts are aligned with God. Several years ago, there was a very popular expression, and it was, "What would Jesus do?" And if you can do that, if you can ask yourself that question in every situation, you're going to start opening to spiritual truth. That's a beautiful question. I challenge you to ask the question, what would God do? Because even Jesus had the human experience, and that was what we saw him express through. Jesus' truth and our truth are all bigger than that human expression. The truth is, we are an expression of God. And when we ask ourselves, what would God do? How would God react? We will realize, first, there is no bad. There is no negative. There is only love. There is only peace. There is only good. And when our perception of life is of love, peace, and good, these perceived horrible things that are happening in this material world will not be our focus. Our focus will be on love, peace, and good, and in that we make changes in ourselves and in this world that overcome all darkness. When we start evolving our spiritual truth, our awareness of spiritual truth, when we start that evolution, it takes us out of victim mode. We will never again be a victim. We will never again feel like a victim. We will realize that we do have the one power, which is God, within. You get to create this path to spiritual awareness, to evolution of truth. You create it. If you choose to use meditation, yoga, prayer, books, beautiful. Let them be ways to open further to what's within. But one of the first things you can do is simply take time each day in silence and let your truth be revealed. Hear what God has to say. Consciously participate in your own evolution. That's the one thing we can do. For now, let's close today with prayer. Father God, we recognize the omnipresence, omnipotence, and omniscience of you. The only presence, the only power, the only wisdom that there is. As we open awareness to this infinite presence, power, and wisdom that is you, we realize we must be made of these divine attributes as well. Guide us as we consciously participate in evolving our awareness and experience of the truth that is the divine and perfect idea of us. Allow our consciousness to be trained on the truth that is us. Guide our awareness of truth so all illusions and separation, darkness and fear fade away. Knowing this prayer is already made manifest and truth is all there is, we say thank you. And so it is. Amen.